Hello, everyone. Oh no, Plasty's camera disappeared. Let me fix that real quick. Okay, she's back. Okay, good. welcome to the Storm Division pre-show for this evening. We're gonna touch a little bit on all the teams for this for Storm Division, deep dive a little bit more into their rosters and their players, then do a little bit of predictions, a little bit of a tier list, and a little bit of fun mixed in there as well. My name is Jasleen, and joining this evening is Plasticine. You guys probably know her as a streamer for Heroes of the Storm and many other games, and an all-around wonderful person, of course. How are you doing, Plasty?
I'm doing good. I actually spent like my morning working out. I was playing Just Dance for a while, so I'm a little bit tired, but I'm good to go. I'm like excited to do this. Let's go.
I'm excited to have Plasty here casting with me. By the way, we are casting a match after this Storm Div breakdown. We're going to be casting pre-workout power versus We Taketh Awayeth, and you guys will have a better idea of who's on these teams and what this match kind of means in a moment here. But it's been a while since we got to cast together, and Plasty's always a blast to cast with. I think the last time was almost a month ago for my birthday stream, so it's good to have you back.
Thank you. I'm actually excited to be back, and then I think we're also going to be casting together again pretty soon, so I'm super excited about that. It's always fun to cast with you.
I have a ton of stuff to cover about these teams, so let's just jump into it.
Yeah.
And we'll start with our first team of the evening, and that is going to be Anti-Clown Association. This is a team that has been around in NGS, I think, since Season 8, and has always been captained by Kelsier. There's been a lot of well-known players come and go from this team, but Kelsier has been a staple to this team. Gotfilth also started on this roster and is back again playing this season with them. He's been on the roster a few seasons. I think he left for 1 or 2 and then came back again. But essentially, Anti-Clown Association, the roster includes Kelsier, Caesar Salad, Gotfilth, Valimar, and Nintori. And for those of you that are CCL fans, you might recognize this as Diamond Hands' CCL roster, with the addition being Dude Abides. He's not off the CCL roster, but he's going to be joining the team as well. So this is a pretty seasoned, ready-to-go team here. They're coming off of CCL, just ended a few weeks ago. Playoffs, I guess, ended a few weeks ago. So I'm interested to see how they perform this season. I don't know if they're planning on sticking to all the same rules and just kind of using this as a easy scrims to set up every week as we prepare to get into Season 4 of CCL, which was announced at the awards show last weekend. Plasty, you familiar with Diamond Hands or any of these players, or what are you thinking here?
Not necessarily with Diamond Hands, but I am a little bit familiar with some of the players. Like I know who Valimar is, and Nintori and Caesar Salad. And I know that Nintori and Caesar Salad are predominantly support healer players. So I'm wondering how does it actually work out for them?
Nintori, so I think Caesar Salad tanks, and Nintori is the off laner, I believe.
Well, they all switched up, I guess.
Well, this is the thing, is I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure who's going to be on what roles in there, because usually what happens in Storm Division is when there's full like CCL rosters that sign up, they'll kind of switch around on roles. So that's something to consider when we're looking at, we're gonna look at a tier list later, but it's definitely something to consider when we're kind of placing them here, is whether they're going to be in comfort roles or not, or whether they're just going to use this as like a for fun, try different roles, try different comps, do some weird things, and more have fun with it, because this team has already done CCL. These players have already made it. Now's the time. Now's the time for them to kind of, maybe just chill a little
Branch
bit
out,
and have fun with it.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Key in chat is saying they were healer mains a while back, so you weren't wrong.
I was right. See, I was right. But yeah, this was like a while back. As in, what I remember of them was from the time that HGC was still a thing, or when the fresh year or so when it died. So it could have changed. I haven't been keeping up. But.
Yeah. Another interesting thing to note here is a couple of these players, Valimar and Nintori, actually came up through the Wildheart Academy system before getting drafted for CCL players. So just something cool to know. We'll see a lot of Wildheart affiliate people through these teams, or previous affiliated with Wildheart throughout these teams, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I think a team definitely that is going to be a tough one to go against. Again, it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to kind of stick to their main roles, or if they're just going to have fun with this and kind of take it as a not so serious competitive environment, as opposed to CCL, where I'm sure they really put their all into it there. We'll move on to Baby Makers. For most of you guys watching, you're probably not as familiar with some of these players. This is the team that qualified after winning Heroic Division last season. Their roster consists of Frecklebob Marbuckle, Dead Wish Paper Tanks, Cheekies, and Lupus. A lot of this roster has been playing together since Season 10 of NGS. They progressed from A West up to Heroic, and then were Heroic champs to qualify, as I was just saying. And their newest additions to the roster this season are Lupus and Cheekies, with the other four sticking it out through, I believe, all iterations of Baby Makers. So the other four have been playing together for a few seasons and are now adding Lupus and Cheekies to their roster. Now, I know this, maybe you guys don't know this, but Lupus and Cheekies play quite a bit together, so there's some good pre-existing synergy between them, and then obviously with the other four members having spent a handful of seasons together already, they're gonna probably be coming in here pretty comfortable with each other. I'm not sure.
It's always good to hear.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I'm not sure how much this team has been scrimming or working on, brushing the dust off heading into this Storm Division. We haven't seen them in things like HRCS, like we've seen some of these teams in that we're going to get to later. So it'll be interesting. They're kind of a bit of a wild card, knowing they performed well in Heroic Division last season, but not really knowing where they fit in the hierarchy of teams here. If, is a Heroic Div champ from last season comparable in skill to a team that qualified this season or any of these rosters? So I'm really interested to see where this team goes. Lupus, as you guys might know, was the 6th player for Wildheart in Season 3 of CCL as well, so you might recognize his name in there. And the rest of the players, I mean, they're just, they're players, again, that you see around quite often. So if you Storm League or you just kind of keep up with NGS stuff, you might recognize their names or you might have seen them around. Plasty, any last notes before we move on to our next team?
Not particularly. I just wanted to say that I'm glad that Cheekies made it into the team.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That's mostly it.
I'm excited to see what Cheekies does this season. I hope she's going to be a regular player on the roster, because I think she is a player that could, like, with some teamwork and with some support and some people to help her out, really develop into somebody that could vie for a spot in CCL one day if she puts the work in. Because she's a great healer main, and I want to see her do great things. So I'm excited to see her here. Hopefully she makes waves this season and good things happen. We'll move on here to the next team. It's going to be Censorship. This is a roster, if you're looking at the website, includes Death Strikes, Hashmer, Shredded Wind, Mundane Zebra, RJ Barrett, and Gingy Boy. And you'll also notice that somebody named Due Diligence is on there. If you are confused about that, them listed as the captain, that's actually Wits End. He does all the team management for Censorship, so that's why he's listed as captain on NGS, since he's the one that does all the scheduling for games and stuff. But there's no plans for him to actually play on the team this season. This is mixed experience in NGS. For some of the players, it's their first time. Other players have played in some seasons of NGS. But for the most part, most of the main roster has several seasons under their belt of NGS. So, they have some experience in the amateur competitive scene. And they've been putting in a ton of work in Heroes Rise Contender Series. Plasty, did you know that?
No, I did not. I'm usually streaming.
Well, they in fact did participate, I think, in every single week of Heroes Rise Contender Series. They won one week, and they are one of the teams that qualified for Storm Division based on points. Right now, there's a couple different ways to get into Storm Div. Well, I'd say 3. One is to win a qualifier, which means going through an entire evening of playing out a bracket and coming out on top. The second way is to qualify by winning the previous season of Heroic Division, which is what Baby Makers did. And the third is, if you play in those qualifiers, you get points based on where you finished, how far you made it along in the bracket. And at the end of all the qualifiers, the 2 teams with the most points get to qualify for Storm Division. So Censorship, one of the teams that qualified based on points. Here's another. Yes, they kind of I don't want to say squeaked in, but going into the last qualifier, Censorship and 30K Violet were basically 1 point off of each other in qualifier points. And it really came down to who got lucky in the seeding for winning those enough points to kind of edge the other one out. And what happened was Baby Diamond Hands got paired up to face one of the teams that had a ton of CCL players, lost in the first round, can't censorship, were able to win their first round series, and they got the points to make it in. So we were kind of mentioning this the other evening, but the bottom end of Storm Div and the top end of Heroic Div in skill level, very, very close, very comparable teams here. We've had, 30K Violet beat out some of these teams that are in Storm Division before, and some of these Storm Division also beating out some of those Heroic. But yeah, it's very, very close in, I would say, skill between the top and lower end of these two divisions. Another interesting thing to note about Can Censorship is they're coached by Caesar Salad. That's one of the players of Diamond Hands on Anti-Clown. Yeah, exactly. So interesting that he's coaching Can't Censorship, because what's interesting about it is Diamond Hands has their academy team also playing in Storm Div, and instead of coaching the academy team, he's coaching Can't Censorship. So interesting little tidbit there for you guys if you didn't know that, but he's been coaching them for quite a while now. I heard it was all through HRCS, so he's been working with them for a little bit here. And from what I've heard from Wits End is their whole goal is to create a place where players can climb and play high level competitive HOTS together. They just want to create a welcoming environment for their team members, people that are interested. They'll kind of help build them up. A lot of their members that have previous played on Can Censorship have ended up on other teams as well. So they're just here to try and build people up, make people better, and add a positive environment to the HOTS community. So that's CCS in a nutshell. Anything you want to add before we move on here, Plasty?
Particularly, I'm just finding it pretty interesting still. It's still in my head about how Caesar Salad is coaching Can't Censorship. What happens if these two teams end up fighting each other? How's that gonna work out?
Yeah, well, they're definitely gonna end up playing each other at some point in the season, and I guess Anti-Clown Association is going to have a lot of insider knowledge about Can't Censorship.
Exactly, because then they have their coach right there, and I don't know how Can't Censorship is really gonna manage to deal with that situation.
Good luck with that matchup, Can't Censorship. We look forward to it. But we'll move on.
I want to actually watch that.
We'll move on. We've got an interesting team here, $1 Million JPEG. This is a newer team to NGS. It's almost brand new. They really only formed quite recently. They didn't, some of them couldn't play in Heroes Rise Contender Series because one of their roster members happens to be Goon from Wildheart, the org owner. So, they didn't play in Heroes Rise Contender Series because Goon's not allowed to participate in it, but their roster also includes Zanehide, Chaotic, Pepper, and Earth. This is an interesting team because some of the players on this team have kind of out there ideas on how to play the game, what could work. So I'm expecting to see some unusual drafts from them, maybe some different takes on the game, maybe some experimenting as well. I also want to mention two players in particular to watch out for. Pepper has been putting in a lot of work on his offlaners. I've seen him in scrims and stuff before. I think he is a player with a ton of potential, somebody that you should look out for. And the other person that I'm really interested to see on this team is Chaotic. And the reason for that is Chaotic has a very solid last 3 seasons of Storm League, but he's never played on a team and never played competitively. So I'll be interested to see how he performs for his first time in a team environment.
It's a very different environment, just Storm League and competitive.
For sure. We were saying the other day, you can have a team stacked with GMs, but they've all been solo queuing their entire life and don't have that team cooperation needed to make successful plays, whereas you could have a stack of Diamond and Plat players that have that coordination, that teamwork there, play just as well on the same level. It's interesting just because you're GM number 22 on the tier list over and over again doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to carry a team or that your team in NGS is going to come out ahead in any way. So,
yeah.
I got a quote from Goon here. He says that $1 Million JPEGs like a diesel engine, slow to warm up, might misfire a bit, but once they get rolling, they just can't stop. So potentially a team to look out for. Maybe they make us think about the game differently. Maybe they discover some things that other people aren't thinking about. But I'm looking forward.
I mean,
go ahead.
we really need to have a little bit of a fresh perspective because everything has kind of just been, meta. There's just one meta and everybody just sticks to it.
I think part of the issue with that is when there's so few patches for the game.
Yeah.
Like there just becomes like eventually people figure out this is the best way to play the game. These are the best heroes. This is the most efficient way to go for a win. So it gets very interesting when you get a team that's willing to experiment and do things outside of the meta, which I'm kind of expecting to see from $1 Million JPEG.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on here. We're going to talk about Baby Diamond Hands now. This is a roster that consists of Key, Unforgiven, McGiblets, Vivanci, Casper, and Simply DK. The interesting thing about this team is it's like half EU players, half NA players. And the few EU players that are on the team are like high Storm League players. This will be the first time playing in NGS for a lot of these players. And I think that it'll be interesting to see how they do because they've been working a lot in Heroes Rise Contender Series. A lot of these names you maybe, because they're EU, maybe people on the NA side aren't as familiar with these players. But I've seen some of these players pull off some really cool plays in Heroes Rise Contender Series, and I'm kind of interested to see how they grow and develop over the season. I don't think
that's how they qualified, right?
They were actually the first team to qualify based on points, by the way.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so
got it.
They had enough points going into the last qualifier that they didn't even have to bother playing. They were already guaranteed a spot. So, they put the work into in qualifiers, and that's how they got into Storm Division. So that's our second team to qualify based on points. After talking to Key, he says that Baby Diamond Hands use the same approach as their CCL team. They like to find a stable group of players, not necessarily the most ready-made talent players, but players that work well together and can grow together. So it's a mix here. Casper's EU, Simply DK is EU, Unforgiven is EU. McGiblets, this is an interesting player. I found out he used to play in Division B last season. So this is kind of like throwing him into the deep end of the pool. Let's see how he faces. Let's see how he faces these much higher ranked players. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm excited to see how Baby Diamond Hands grows this season. They've kind of had some not so great showings in Heroes Rise Contender Series, but they're definitely working hard to become a better team. So yeah.
I guess it's because they have some players that have never really played in a competitive setting before, so maybe they're still kind of trying to find that synergy that they need.
Yeah, I'm not sure if some of those EU players have played in other things on the EU side of it, but in terms of NGS, I think it's just Vivanci and McGiblets that have played, and they played several seasons of NGS over like various different teams the last 5 seasons. Another thing to note here, Key is mostly going to be a sub for the season, so we maybe won't see him playing as often as we see Unforgiven, McGiblets, Vivanci, Casper, and Simply DK. That'll probably be most of the main roster the majority of the time here.
Just say that every time I see McGiblets, I've always read it as McGiblets. Weird. I'm sorry, I've been mispronouncing their name this whole time.
We'll keep motoring on here because we have 10 minutes until the match starts.
Sorry.
Okay, pre-workout power. Now, some of you guys might be confused because if you watch the last qualifier for Storm Division, there was a team called Pre-Workout Power that did not qualify and definitely did not have enough points to get in. And let me clear up that confusion right now, is that Pre-Workout Power was previously named Not Fans. Not Fans won a qualifier to get in, and they recently changed their name to Pre-Workout Power after they picked up CPX. Now, with that in mind...
It's Power. It's Power.
I am never going to be able to just say Power. Like, I will... No. I'm just going to say Power the entire time. So I will always have to think about it. And so it's just not, after that, it's not happening.
Wait, so that's one of the teams that we're actually going to be casting tonight, right?
Yes. This team consists of Nathanatos, Any Problem, Jay, my pal Vince, Maka, and CPX. Some of you guys, again, if you're CCL fans, might recognize a couple of the names in there. Jay used to play for Simplicity. Vince was recently acquired about halfway through the season on Oxygen to become their tank. And Storm has CPX, identity theft,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, a couple of these players, Jay, Maka, they've played on teams such as Anti-Clown Association, GG Till I Die in previous seasons, and all of these players have a ton of experience playing competitively, whether it be in the amateur scene or in CCL here. They, not fans, what roster was not CCL players, were playing quite a lot in Heroes Rise Contender Series leading up to Storm Division. So they're going to be kind of fresh off HRCS right now going into the season. But it'll be interesting to see how they perform now that they have those additional players to their roster that we didn't see in Herx, being Vince and CPX. Yeah. I think this is going to be another team that's kind of up there in the contenders. Going to be a difficult team to potentially go against. Maybe not as hard as Anti-Clown Association or We Take It Awayeth, which we're going to talk about in a moment as well. But still some hard hitters on the team, and it'll be interesting to see how they compare to, first of all, the full rosters of Diamond Hand and Wild Heart, but also some of these other teams that have been putting a lot of work into HRCS and scrims and stuff along the way as well. Not fans shredded HRCS brutally for almost every series they were in. Yeah, they were very dominant. So having the extra pickups of Vince and CPX on the roster now could just tilt them over the edge here, and I'm expecting them to do fairly decent this season. Pulaski, any last words here before we move on? I'm trying to power through so we can get the rest of this.
No.
Okay.
I'm good, actually. How many teams are left?
2.
Okay.
Yeah, we're almost there.
We can do it.
We're going to make it through. I promise we're going to make it through the entire show before we have to cast. We Take It Awayeth. These guys have a special place in my heart.
The other team are doing tonight.
Yes.
Casting tonight.
These guys have a special place in my heart because if you don't know, this is essentially the CCL or Wild Heart CCL roster. It includes Mason Blaze, Tremor, Weary Day Zergling, Slug Hunter, with the addition of Infrared.
Sorry,
so
goodness. The logo just popped up for me and I was like, oh.
So this is already a lot of pre-existing synergy here with this team. If you weren't aware, these members all played on Heavy Impact last season, I believe it was. Infrared included, so Infrared's used to playing with these guys. I think Slug Hunter is the only one that didn't play on Heavy Impact last season because he was on Wild Heart Omega, one of the players that got picked up off our Academy team and drafted into CCL. So, Academy team system kind of working for Wild Heart, just saying. Yeah, and if you're not following CCL, Wild Heart finished 3rd this season of CCL, so this is a pretty strong team. I will say, however, we might see some experimenting on roles here. They might not be playing their usual roles that we're used to seeing them play in CCL. So that might make them a little bit weaker of a team in that sense. But these are still very skilled players. A lot of them used to flexing around anyway. So I'm not expecting them just because of role swaps to be a team that you could necessarily easily take down here. Plasty, anything you want to add here?
It's I'm very excited to see them play today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo, Wild Heart.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There may be a little bit of a bias here, just a tiny bit, but I'll do my best to be impartial. What's the word? Non-biased. Yeah. There you go. Impartial.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get to cast them because I never get to cast the team I manage, obviously. So this is going to be my first time casting them, so I'm pretty excited. Last team we have up here. Well, who knows? Weary's calling me a leaker in chat. But who knows? Maybe they're going to take tonight's match.
He's calling Slug a leaker.
Oh. Maybe they're going to take tonight's match more seriously because it's one of the harder teams to go against. So maybe there won't be as many role swaps, but we'll have to see how it plays out. I don't know what they're going to do tonight. I don't have any insider knowledge on tonight's matchup. They didn't tell me anything, and I didn't read anything. So last but not least, we have Wild Heart Omega. So again, another Wild Heart team here. This consists of Reb, Gojira, Funds, Iron, and Roger. Reb previously played on Phoenix Rising teams before joining Who for Season 12. Gojira, I'm sure most of you know him as the Chen main from your Storm League games, if you're up there in like the Master, GM, High Diamond, ELO. Funds, you probably maybe recognize that name as well, because that is a player that's played in previous seasons of CCL. In Season 1, he was on Wild Heart, and in Season 2, he was picked up by Diamond Hands. He's an experienced player. He kind of has a little bit of a reputation for running it down sometimes. So he can be very aggressive as well, which can lead to some inting, but well, I'm excited to see what he does. He's picked up tank role recently. That's what he's been playing with Wild Heart Omega. That's not what he played during the CCL days, so he's kind of adjusting, kind of figuring out what he can and can get away with. Just a player to keep an eye on. They also have Iron, which is a player that was brought up from the team Phoenix Rising Xanthite, who picked them up. And Phoenix Rising Xanthite, by the way, placed second in Nexus Div last season. So who picked up Iron? They needed to fill a healer position after Slug Hunter was drafted, because Slug Hunter used to play heal for Wild Heart Omega, if you didn't know. And then they have Roger. He's previously played on teams such as Heavy Impact, which, if you guys remember, is We Take It the Wayeth from last season. They just changed their name. So he has some really great experience playing with some pretty skillful players as well to kind of bring to this team and maybe, you know, help these players along the way. This team's also been playing a ton in HRCS, so they've been working through that. They've been making sure to get, you know, they were the first team to qualify. They were ready to go. The first qualifier was before Christmas. So, yeah, I think, I mean, I don't think I would be leaking anything if I think about, like, what their team chats are, but it's just a team that I know has been, like, working hard, getting the scrims in. A lot of players that are, like, really, really want to prove themselves on this team. So, I think it's a team to keep an eye out for sure. All right, really quickly, we got 3 minutes. I'm going to show you guys my tier list. And I'm expecting this to change as the weeks go on. But here's my tier list for Storm Div. I have We Take It the Wayeth at the top here. I mean, it's hard to not put them at the top, it being the CCL team that finished third here, and the other two teams aren't playing in NGS, so it's hard not to put them at the top as we get into the first week of Storm Div. After that, we have Anti-Clown Association. Again, it's Diamond Hands. This is a team that's been competing with the best of the best in CCL, expecting them to come in here and do, great things for the most part. We have Pre-Workout Power next. Again, Not Fans had been pretty consistent in their HRCS performances, and with the additions of CPX and Vince there now as well to kind of help this team along, I'm expecting them to perform pretty well. And those three are kind of like my solid, yeah, this is probably where it's going to go. But from here, it's a little bit, this really could go in any order. I think the bottom 5 teams here. We've had tons of situations where all of these teams have kind of beat each other, the ones that have been playing in HRCS being Wild Heart Omega, CCS, and Baby Diamond Hands. So really, this order is very flexible. This isn't anything set in stone. And so I just have it this way because $1 Million JPEG actually beat out CCS and Diamond Hands to get into Storm Div. So I put them above those two teams on the tier list. Wild Heart Omega, I know the work they've been putting in. I think that they could probably maybe win against $1 Million JPEG. But again, we've seen CCS beat Who. We've seen CCS beat Baby Diamond Hands. There's been a lot of back and forth there. So it's not as clear cut where these teams fall. And Baby Makers, the only reason I have them in C is because I don't know what they've been doing. I don't know if they've been scrimming. I don't know if they've been prepping for Storm Div. I didn't really get the opportunity to see them play in Heroic, so I'm not necessarily saying they're a bad team. I just don't know where they fall, and that's why they're there right now. Not because they did anything that made me think they're bad. I just don't know where they would place because they haven't played in things like HRCS for me to compare them to other teams. Very quickly, I'm just going to give you guys a rundown of what matches we have this week because I have 1 minute here. But we are going to have Anti-Clown Association taking on $1 Million JPEG. That is happening right now over on Creeper's Bot's channel, if you want to check that out at some point. We also have happening tonight Pre-Workout Power taking on We Take It the Wayeth. That's coming up in like literally a minute. We're going to just take a quick break, set up everything on the stream side, and we're going to be casting that. Let's have Wild Heart Omega facing Censorship tomorrow. That's happening over on El Taquito's channel, if you want to see that. Taco, some of you guys might know him as, at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. And then Saturday at Crushinator's channel, you can watch Baby Makers versus Baby Diamond Hands, the two babies going up against each other. I think the interesting matches to watch for this week is going to be Baby Makers versus Baby Diamond Hands, because we get an idea of how Baby Makers kind of stacks up against some of these teams that have been playing a lot lately, Baby Diamond Hands being one that's been putting a lot of work into HRCS. And Wildheart Omega, the Can't Censorship matchup. We've had times who comes out on top, times Can't Censorship comes out on top. So that should be a very close competitive match to keep an eye on. Of course, I'm excited for our match tonight because I get to cast the Wildheart boys. But also, let me give you a quick rundown of how I think the matches are going to play out in terms of wins tonight. Or this week, I should say. I think Anti-Clown Association is going to take the win over $1 Million JPEG, but it's still a series you might want to go pop on over to check out to see what's going on with the drafts, because both teams have kind of been known to run some like cheesy, crazy things. We Take It the Wayeth, I think will come out on top. I don't think it's going to be an easy win, especially if they're going to be switching up some roles and stuff on the side of We Take It the Wayeth, because there is still some really good players on pre-workout power that have been scrimming a lot lately. I think who will win? This one really could go either way. I just picked who because I like Wildheart. But I think who can win. They have won before. I think they can do it again if they just stay consistent in their games. And lastly, Baby Diamond Hands. I don't know how this one's going to go. I really have no idea, so I just picked a team here. Baby Diamond Hands has been scrimming lately. They've been playing in Hercs. They've been putting in the work. So if I had to guess, because I don't know anything about Baby Makers, Baby Diamond Hands takes it, but that match is a big toss-up and kind of like we'll figure out where these teams compare in this bracket. That's it for the pre-show, guys. We're going to take a quick break because I'm sure these teams are ready to get going into the games here. We're 2 minutes late, and we'll be back in just a moment for the cast. And I bet I didn't even update the starting soon screen, so just give me a second here. Lassie, anything you want to add? Oh, good, it is. Okay.
No, I'm actually really hyped to get into this.
All right, guys, we'll be right back. Stick around for the cast here in just a moment.